it's one thing creating one video or maybe even 10, and publishing, but it's a whole different thing doing it consistently over time, and that's what you need the system for, right? So how would you build a system to help you achieve that?
The number one thing people are like, how do you post so much? Like, the truth is we don't, but let me explain.
Jemimah Ashleigh, why is the idea of building a personal brand so important to you?
It is probably one of my favorite things to speak about, because I think we've always thought as personal brand as really being like this optional nice thing to have. We had our business, we were making money through our business, and it's not optional anymore, unfortunately. In a world where we're so saturated with media, we're getting so much content thrown at us, we're getting so many videos, so much TikTok stuff. What we need to do is be able to stand out, and as personal brand is your street credit to getting literal credibility, to winning business awards, to getting featured in the media, differentiating yourself between your competitors. I think it is probably one of the most important things that you can do for your business and yourself in 2026.
Okay, so there's some nice pros there, but there's some drawbacks as well. Right off the bat at the start of this interview, I want to ask you about the cons of also building a personal brand, because it's not all a bed of roses, right? There's two sides to it. What are your thoughts on that? Like, especially when you become really well known, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. What are your thoughts on that?
I think in many ways, visibility does open you up to pushback. I think it opens you up potentially to being more well known, as in you can be recognized anywhere. Yeah, the first time I was ever recognized, I was in a public bathroom. That was an interesting experience for all involved. The other thing that happens is that you get opened up to criticism. If you're commenting on something, or you're willing to take a hill to die on things, if you have a political stance, if you have an opinion on anything, there's always someone that's going to really want to fight you on that. The other thing that I see a lot of, and probably the biggest drawback that I think most people probably meet before they meet any criticisms about who they are or being recognized, is that it's so demanding in its way of consistency, is that people think you do one social media post and you are going to be a social media expert forever and you're going to have a personal brand. But it is actually quite demanding in the amount of work that you probably need to do for it. It's extremely intentional, and I think if you do not take that intentionality down, you can really spread your time very, very thin.
Yeah. So apart from the drawbacks of building a personal brand, sounds like you're convinced that it is a good thing, because obviously you live that, you breathe that every day, but you also help others and teach others how to do this. What are some of the main things you tell people to keep in mind when they build their personal brand? And maybe you can talk a little bit about the kind of person that you talk to as well.
Yeah, my favorite person to speak to is entrepreneurs and business owners. Is that I think that if I get the opportunity to work with a business owner and entrepreneur, it's probably my favorite thing. They're often very good at what they do and often very good at selling something, but haven't quite caught the recognition that they need to be part of the product, that they are part of the product here. One of the things that we see quite regularly is that you need to really start considering what you want to be known for. I think one of the things that I see probably very regularly is that people don't position themselves as an expert in anything. They try to position themselves as an expert in everything. And unfortunately, that doesn't work. You have to really also consider your audience. Who are you trying to speak to? If you're an entrepreneur and you speak to entrepreneurs, you need to start thinking about how you can communicate with them effectively. I'd really get very, very clear on if I was first starting this journey, get very, very clear on what I would consider pillars. What are you most wanting to be known for? And what are the things that you only want to speak about? It's so tempting when you start to get media that you can start being known for, you can put in for source bottles and for quoted articles where you're talking about plants, when you're talking about TV or like your eating habits, when that's not what you want to be known for. Drilling down into that can get quite addictive. So just being really, really clear on what your core messages are and the things that you want to be known for and what you want to speak to.
Now, I want to dig into some more details here, because I feel like there's a lot to this and to unpack this. But before we do, I know that you've got a bit of a background with systems, and the way you
Mm,
came across that was, as I think, is very interesting because you come
yeah.
from. Well, if I may just say something there, but I'd love for you maybe to tell the stories from the AFP, the Australian Federal Police, if I get that right,
Hmm.
where where it was a very closed system. You didn't want to be known there, right? So it was like you're very private in that sort of a position. But
Yeah.
there was a systems aspect to that as well. But do you want to just, before we jump into some of the more detailed stuff, talk on how you transitioned from being in that closed kind of system, being invisible, so to speak, and that was kind of your job, to then having this total 180 to becoming visible and then that becoming your thing. And then, I think that could be a nice segue for us to move into the processes side of things. So I think that's where you stumbled upon the whole process importance thing, right? So tell us that story.
It's a story. It's definitely a story. It's definitely a story. So I grew up in what's best referred to as a law enforcement family. My dad was a police officer for 40 years. My mum worked in the courts and in jails, and it was just kind of a given. This is what everyone did in our family, and I did exactly that. I was 15 when 9/11 happened, and I got to watch when the Twin Towers fell. I saw that happen, and I remember thinking, this is something that, I was picking my year 12 year level subjects, and I thought, national security is going to become bigger and bigger in the future. I was right, unfortunately. So I ended up going to university and studying national security. And I did that for my undergrad in that. And then I went on to go and do some postgraduate work in around investigations and then focusing on criminal intelligence. And I got a job working, would ultimately end up working for the Australian Federal Police. Immediately, they identified I had some skills in languages, and I was moved to Western Australia, to Perth. And then I spent the next sort of 13 years in law enforcement, having a career there. The thing about law enforcement that I don't think people recognize is that how much of it is built on in and around systems that, and you have to have literal legal dots dash i's cross, like you have to have it all ready to go. You have to have, briefs of evidence and processes, and very intuitively, like, I cannot get a warrant unless I have evidence that this person's done this thing. I need to be very, very clear about that. My job was also one of those jobs where I held a very, very high security clearance. I couldn't be known. I couldn't really have a social media presence. I couldn't, everything had to be extremely locked down. I couldn't talk about my work anywhere. And certainly I understand talking about this now locks me out of that career in the future. And I'm okay with that. So I ended up, when I ended up leaving, and it's a story I think that we hear time and time again, particularly from women and particularly from a law enforcement background. I went in when I was so young, and I didn't realize the emotional and mental toll that was likely to happen on me in many ways. And that I got to about 33, 34 and realized I was exhausted. And I was exhausted in that, like, in my bones, tired. I was completely burnt out. I was constantly living in like a, like a state of fear constantly. There was, terrorist attacks were very, very real. People were being kidnapped, and that was very, very real. I had security clearances that I had to maintain, and that meant obviously divulging a lot about my personal life. And I got very, very tired of all of that very quickly. And it all came to a head when I was about 33, and I thought I need to have a career break. Taking a step back from that was probably the scariest thing I've ever done, because that was my home. It's all I knew, and I didn't really know anything else other than kind of a law enforcement world. I hadn't grown up in and around business, but I just intuitively knew that I needed to do something else. So I started a very, very small business, just selling, literally making and selling jewelry, and I loved it. And we started getting really big traction very quickly. And, we're making six figures within 3 or 4 months. And it was just because I intuitively knew I could identify systems better than anyone else I've ever seen, because it's the world I lived in. I knew that I had to name the business before I could have a Facebook page. I knew I needed to probably have a logo before I could print business cards. I knew that I had to figure out how much things were going to cost and reverse engineer what that was going to look like. I understood budgeting. I understood that I wasn't going to have $1 million to run this job. So therefore, how do I allocate time, money, resources? And then I could put that into a jewelry business very quickly. So some would say I've overcorrected. Some would say that I have definitely overcorrected, and I now have a job where I'm extremely visible all the time. But it's also probably my favorite thing now, as I got to have the best of both worlds for a while there. And yeah, I think you're going to be hard pressed to find me to go back to that kind of role again.
That's super interesting. I wonder, to bring it back to building a personal brand, do you think, or do you think your experience in the AFP was like a catalyst for you to have this desire to be seen and to be heard and to be remembered, like, or do you think you had that even before that? Because it almost seems like a prerequisite to, if you want to build a personal brand, there's got to be that sort of a desire to be seen and to be heard, right, and to be remembered. I think you've got that on your website as well. In your case, do you think it was developed, or do you think it already was there before you worked in the police?
That is a great question. I actually never had that question before, and it's something I'm thinking about a little bit on the fly. I think that my idea and my entire business concept has always been about legacy. I think my entire life has been about how do I live a life where I help other people, that I'm in service of other people, and that I'm literally leaving a legacy. When I was doing a very, very backstory here that I probably haven't spoken about very much. When I was in my final year of high school, we had 3 deaths of students in sort of that last 12 months, and to the point where our whole year level got special consideration. It was a really rough year for a lot of people, and a small country town, so everyone knew each other really well. And it was, I think, part of me recognized there and then this wasn't forever, that we only got this ride once, that there was no coming back from this. Like, you have one shot and that's it. So you better make it count. And I think I learnt that in an uncomfortable, difficult way. But I think that ultimately for me, I had the option of figuring that out early. So anything that I was going to touch moving forward was going to be about legacy. My legacy working in the Australian Federal Police, I got to work some of the best jobs in the world. I got to do some things that people in the world do not get to go and do. I got to have really incredible life experiences, and I'm never going to be angry about any of those. But I also found that places like that, I probably was deemed a little bit too much. I probably thought outside of the box a little bit more than most people. I always wanted a bit more. So I would say it's probably a hybrid. I think I've always had a bit of a driver that I wanted to do more, that I wanted to see more. But I think I got that from understanding that this was a short trip around the sun. This wasn't forever. And I think that ultimately I've sort of stayed in the same lane of, I'm here to help people, to help grow whatever they want to do, to help solve crimes. Really available for any service where I can help. Thanks.
Nice. So one thing that that stood out to me about you as well as what you learned at the, while you're working at the police, is one of the interviews you had, I think, with Ben Wright earlier in the year. I think within a 10-minute time frame, you mentioned the word process about 14 times, so which was awesome. And
I'm brand for me, yeah, I get it.
I'm a process guy too. I love process, and that's why I create software to help systemize and automate things. But so with the lessons you learned from working in police and now, but also applying it to your own business for building personal brands, if you had to now apply that, and let's say I challenge you and I say, Jemimah, you've got to build a very successful personal brand, and you've only got, say, 6 to 12 months to do this, and the main requirement is that you can only use short form video.
Yes.
How would you go about not just doing that, but specifically building the system that can make that happen, like building the sausage factory? Like, it's one thing creating one video or maybe even 10, and publishing them, but it's a whole different thing doing it consistently over time, and that's what you need the system for, right? So take me through that. How would you build a system to help you achieve that?
The first thing I would do is definitely look at the foundational part of what you're trying to build, because when people think personal brand, they think it's very accidental. And the thing I will tell you immediately is if it looks accidental, it absolutely is not. The first thing I'd be looking at is figuring out who you are, what problem you solve, who do you solve that problem for, and getting very, very clear about what you stand for. I'd get very, very clear about my strengths and my expertise. I'd get very, very clear about what I wanted other people to say my name about. If anyone is known for something, please know that is so structurally intentional. So I would look at this as a foundational piece, the bare minimum of what you need to look at. The next thing I would be looking at is talking about the brand identity, and particularly around the brand story. Why should I care about anything that you're saying? If I was building a brand up, the first thing I'd do in like a short-term video is like, why will other people want to watch these videos? Why would people care about these videos? Why would anyone want to know anything that I'm speaking about? The next thing I would do is really get very, very clear about pillars that I would speak about. And so if you were looking at this as getting a structure down, the bare minimum, you'd be looking at things like, on Monday, I'm going to speak about the expertise and the things that I do. On Tuesdays, I'm going to do a sales call, a sales pitch for someone to sign up for me to help, sell my whatever I'm selling. Wednesdays might be personal. I want them to engage with me, to reach for me, to understand what I do, what problem I solve, but just so they can get closer to me, to build that know, like, and trust in the sales process, and so on and so forth. I'd have allocated days. The next thing that I'd really look at is the brand identity for the visuals. One of the things that we see quite regularly with people building personal brands, I try everything into a bit of an ad hoc approach. I get consistent. Again, I think consistency is always going to be your best friend with building a personal brand, but get consistent on the clothing that you wear, the colors, the fonts that you're putting on video. How are you hashtagging? How are you writing a copy? Are you using emojis? The next thing I look at for short video really quickly would be platform selection. Not everyone is designed for every type of platform. So the short video content plays really well into Facebook. It plays really well into really Meta as a whole. To TikTok, you're going to have a really hard time with that on LinkedIn. So just also understanding the profile, like the profile and the platform selection where you need to be, and understanding just the psychology of video content. There is a study whose name I can't give you off the cuff right now, but it would take about 10 Instagram posts to really support out 1 minute of video. And just understanding to go all in for that. I would get so consistent that I knew that I was posting, if this was me, I'd be posting once or twice a day and locking that in at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. I'm doing a video. That I am doing Mondays, this is what I'm doing. It's going out at this time. On Tuesdays, this is what's happening. And getting so consistent to also help build out that trust, that know, like, and trust when it comes to businesses, because I think it's extremely underrated.
Right. So you've mentioned consistency there, and I actually had it for a later question, but I think since you've talked about it now, let's bring it in and unpack that a bit, because there's at least two kinds of consistency here that I heard you mention. One was there's the consistency of brand, so make sure you've got the same colors and use, consistent colors throughout your, videos and your website, and, same branding, all this sort of stuff, consistent messaging and this sort of thing. So you have that. That's a consistency, right? But there's another definition of consistency as well, which I think that first one seems almost like I can do that. I can check the boxes on that. The second consistency is about showing up every day. Like you mentioned, you post twice a day sometimes. And I'm not sure how long you've been doing that for, if you're still doing that, or how long, you've been able to sustain that for. But to me, that is the thing that I find difficult personally, but also what I see, that's the biggest hurdle or one of the biggest hurdles that people fall over. Or it's more like maybe it's not the hurdle, but it's the outcome of other hurdles maybe that prevents people from being consistent. Do you have any tips or thoughts on that kind of consistency, that second kind of consistency for showing up every day? Like, it's one thing to say, I'm going to post at 9 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day. It's another thing to actually do it and to do it every single day. What are your thoughts on that? What's helped you, and what have you seen help your clients to show up every day in that kind of consistency?
Absolutely. This is the number one thing people are like, how do you post so much? Like, the truth is we don't, but let me explain. Is that once every 6 months, we spend one day where we write content for the next 6 months. And so really I'm giving you probably 48 hours of my life for what I would refer to as an evergreen content strategy. Our evergreen content strategy is really simple, that we have multiple pillars that we build out to. And I'm just going to do some really unsexy math very quickly back to back. So we have 8 pillars that we follow. We do 28 posts of each of those 8 pillars, and we repeat the process twice. That gives us we have 28 pieces of content inside those pillars. That gives us 6 months worth of content. We repeat content at least twice over the course of a 6-month period, because the psychology tells us, this is my AFP background too, the psychology tells us people forget what they've seen every 42 days. So we know that after 3 months, they're not even going to remember this post they've seen previously. It has become a numbers game. So there's a few things that are happening here. Number one, we got really structured in how to do this. We built out a literal spreadsheet, which is, we show people this and they're like, are you kidding? And we have companies now buy it from us because they're like, we need this more than anything. I'm going to give it to you quite verbally, unfortunately. I apologize. We built out, so the first column we have is expert. What are you an expert in? Jemimah Ashleigh is an expert in visibility. And so we write 28 pieces of content based on expertise of visibility. That's the first thing we do. Second one is we have sales posts.
When you say right, so these are ideas for videos or ideas for all kinds of content, or are you specifically doing this for video?
We do this exclusively as a starting mark to start recording the video content. We lean heavily into video. So what we often do is the video content that we make, we film and we do batch recording. In a surprise to no one, that I think how many people do batch recording, it's really much easier than most people think. And it's easier sitting down with a screen like we are right now and doing an interview using a camera and speaking to camera is often just the easiest way to do it. Hi, my name's Jemimah. I'm here to talk about expertise. I'm here to talk about visibility. Let's talk about getting on a podcast. Being on someone else's podcast is one of the fastest ways, and we film that as quickly as possible. I think people forget how quickly you can get some of this stuff done. So if you're writing these kind of ideas and these thought processes out for pieces of content, then straight away you're into sales stuff. So you're like, hey, we've got this Facebook group, you should join it. Click the link below, go find it here. I can repeat that 3 or 4 times over the course of 6 months and no one's going to notice that it's there. Because also, please keep in mind, social media, only 6% of people see anything you post at any given time. Repeat things is mandatory. So the next one I would look at is having personal. They want to like, oh, did you know, this is my cat Munro. You should meet Munro. He's the best. Everyone that knows me knows Munro because he's often prancing around in the background and jumping on tables to say hello to people on video calls. And we then have media, any media, we recap media. We have testimonials, we have quotes, we have inspiration. And this hybrid model here is exactly what we do. We build an evergreen strategy out. We record and batch video content back to back within a matter of another day of filming. I literally had a filming day yesterday. This isn't a bit, this is totally real. We did, I think, 40 videos in probably 4 hours. I knew what I had to say in and out.
Okay, so it helps if you're the subject matter expert, but I guess that's the beginning point, right? And having that desire to do it as well, even before that. So there's something interesting you mentioned about reposting the content that you create. So I think you mentioned, was it 32 days, or what was the number that people forget what you've talked about?
Yeah, 42 days. Yeah.
Okay, 42 days. So you repeat this content. You literally repost that content. Is that to all the platforms? Like the one exception in my mind is possibly YouTube, but I'm not sure if you're posting on YouTube as well, where there's some potential penalties for duplicate content. But I'm not, to be honest, 100% sure about short form. I know that's for long form, but do you go to YouTube as well, reposting that same content too, or is it more the other platforms?
No, I have a YouTube account and I do have a couple of videos there. I think I got like 200 subscribers. There's nothing huge on there, but often it's where we will put longer form videos. So as an example, if this came to me as a longer form video, that's where it will go. It's a saving place for me to put video content. For other interviews I've done, I don't make content for YouTube. I've never done that. It's something that I think in the future maybe. As you mentioned earlier, Ben and I certainly use that for our YouTube stuff. But again, it's a bit of a dumping ground for like, we have a video, where should we put it? Let's put it on YouTube. For me, I almost exclusively talk about social media and using video content for social media for conversion for sales.
Gotcha.
And I think YouTube is a bit of a, I think for most people, it's a bit of a time suck. Unless you're making money off the platform, I don't know how good it is as a sales lead generator, especially for entrepreneurs and business owners.
Right. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the implementation of this, because so you've got all these ideas written down in the spreadsheet, and that gives you the fodder to then batch record all this content in one day, like you did like 40 something videos yesterday, which is amazing. Congratulations. So
thank you.
So from that point forward, then you've got it recorded. What then? Do you have a team that helps you process that? Do you have a video editor on your team? Do you outsource that? Do you give it to your niece or something like that or a cousin, whatever, to help you process that? Because that's quite a big job then to process all those videos into something that's publishable, so to speak. What's the next step there from that?
So video content for us is, we have a hybrid approach for content. So when we have like Canva tiles, we have webinars, we're doing sales stuff. That's often in-person video stuff, Facebook Lives, those sort of things. So we lean heavily into those as well. For any of the short form video content that we're doing, that is always edited external. I am a strong advocate for, I like editing videos in things like CapCut and having a bit of fun to create like funny little videos. What I'm not going to be the expert in doing is putting videos together that are going to be sellable or the industry best practice. That is not our wheelhouse. I'm not going to pretend like it's mine. We outsource that exclusively. For the posting part, I've had the same virtual assistant from Upwork now for about 6 years. Bless his cotton socks. His name's Amin, and he is incredible. And every day this gentleman jumps online, posts into my accounts. He has direct access to all of my accounts. I got locked out of, I was in one of the like data hacks on one of like when LastPass got taken down. And I just said, here's my passwords, I'll change them. I never did. He's just still got access. Probably not probably security, the best one from an AFP perspective. But that man is like been our longest standing team member, and he's amazing. And I love him, and he does everything for us.
He's from the Philippines, did you say?
No, he lives in Pakistan. He's amazing. I love him.
Okay, right.
I just got him off Upwork. Someone else recommended him. Who had used him before and said he was amazing. And he's became Muhammad Amin is his name, and Amin's just our other team member. He's incredible, and I think once you get team members that are great at what they do, his sole job, with very broken English, is to cut and paste video content literally from a spreadsheet and upload it onto our social media platforms. And so this is our Evergreen strategy. And this stops me from, I can't be bothered. This stops that consistency thing from moving forward. Because the thing is here, and this is the question I guess I sort of half-assed answered before, is that you have to recognize that you're building a business. And with that becomes responsibility of, it doesn't matter how you're feeling, it matters what you do. And if you have what we would refer to as an evergreen strategy, and you have something sitting and it just bubbles away, it doesn't need to do much. It just needs to I'm here, just a reminder, we do the visibility lab. We have this thing coming up. Hey, what's up? And then over top of that, I can be like, hey, we're launching this new program. This is happening. And so if people are seeing this, I'm going to get rewarded from a social media strategy. From a social media standpoint, if I'm posting every day, I get rewarded when I post more. The attention economy is very real. So therefore, I'm just sitting over top of that, bubbling away, then I start pushing my actual sales, pushing my actual funnel, pushing my buy the thing right now. This is what we need to do. And I don't have to think about not having to sell because the rest of my content is doing it.
I can see how that can really help with the consistency thing, because you've got if we go through the process again, you come up with the ideas in a spreadsheet, literally. Then you go and record it, batch record, flick it over to your editor, and then get actually someone else to then post that content for you. So it's outside of your your hands at that point. So someone else is taking care of that consistency. Someone whose job it is to be consistent on your behalf. I love that. Tell me, with your just out of interest, with your person that's working for you in Pakistan doing the posting for you, once they've got the video, is there like how do you or who or how do you create the additional content that goes along with the videos? Because there's one thing to have the video and the content within the video, etc. But then there's a couple of other things that are kind of annoying, especially if you build a team around this. One is to create thumbnails, and that's one question I have for you: whether you actually create thumbnails for your short form videos. And the second thing is what we just call over here on our side the meta content of the short form video. So like your titles, your descriptions, your tags or hashtags, or any written content that accompanies your video when you post it. How do you deal with those? Do you get your team to take care of that as well, or is that something that you're still involved with as well?
That's something I'm strongly involved in as well. That's something I'm reluctant to pass over, just for the simple fact that our team may not understand the bigger picture of what's going on. For example, and this is totally true, not a bit, this isn't something we cooked up of to talk about, but we're launching a brand new product that's coming out in 2026 for us. And at the time of this recording, I've just recorded the videos for it literally yesterday. And all I am doing in that conversation is talking about, this is why we changed. For 7 years, we've done the same thing. It's changing. This is what it's going to look like. And being very, very clear about that. I can't trust that my team will understand what that will mean for the rest of my business. So what I do is, when I do these kind of thoughts for this, and it can be as simple as this. When I do the thoughts for the video, I knew what I was going to do. I recorded the videos. I used ChatGPT to help me with the dot points I'd make to create a bit of a script. I then can run that through and be like, give me some alternative titles for this. Tell me what that looks like. For the thumbnails for things, it does depend, because we often have graphics and things over top. Often we just use one that's internal. We don't add an additional, because we've actually worked pretty hard to get the cool little tiles and B-roll footage in there.
Cool.
So it is a little bit easier for us, I think, because we have the strategy that comes in before.
Okay, nice. All right, so there's so that's the coming up with ideas, essentially, the production, the recording, the editing is taken care of. You've got a team to help you then with the posting as well, but you're still very much involved in making sure the messaging that goes along with it is on brand and correct. So you help with that and inject that into the process. Got it. Moving on, there's a couple of other things that you. Like I went to one of your talks at Dale Beaumont's recent event at Business Blueprint, and it was really cool. Thank you for that. There's a couple of things you mentioned that I thought was really cool, and this is a little bit going outside the realms of short form, but I think it might be able to help, with the whole short form thing. And the first one is collaborations, and whether you use that for building your short form video audience. And the other one is building strong community. Can you touch on those two things? Because I think those are two things that you're really good at, and you've been able to figure out that game as well. And from my point of view, those are pretty important things for, when you're building creating short form video content. It's not just about the views, but it's also about who else who else mentions your name in other rooms, as you talk about, but then also building that strong community. What are your tips on getting those things happening?
I really love how many notes you've obviously taken in my talk. So I was given half an hour at Dale's and they were like, just go for it. It's okay. Thank you so much. Love that you were paying attention. It was nice that one person was listening to. So let's talk about collaboration. I think collaboration is probably one of the most underrated tools in people's wheelhouse. I think that finding the right collaboration is a bit harder. I am not suggesting, let me be super clear on this, to go and start a business with somebody else. I think the business rate success when you bring someone else on board for a business, if you're not heading in the same direction, can be a little bit dangerous. But I'm just talking about collaboration. Collaboration, particularly when it comes to video format, what a luxury item to be able to say to somebody, I want to talk with you and we can share each other's audiences. The first thing is, straight away, you're collaborating on your audiences. You can double or potentially even triple your audiences by just saying to someone, hey, I want to do a video with you. Let's do a video content. Let's do a webinar together. because they're going to bring their community, you're going to bring your community, and you're going to get to cross over for that. Collaborations can look like a podcast. It can be a guest on a podcast episode. It could be, let's run a retreat together. Let's host an event together. They don't have to be starting a 6-figure business. And how to look at this. So you mentioned earlier my podcast with Ben Wright. Ben and I are about as different from each other as you will ever meet, but we have a deep fascination and love of each other, because how he would answer a question, we'll always agree, but how we get there, man, that is wild. That is wildly different ways that we find our way to each other. And when you see us in person, we're like chalk and cheese. It just is. But Ben's audience trusts him. My audience trusts me. That is immediately, we have shortened that phase. I mentioned we get to cross over regularly with our audiences, because my audiences want to learn about sales. His audience is like, we got the sales down. We now need to actually prove we're the best at what we are. So that's kind of the first one. I think collaboration is grossly underestimated, particularly when it comes to video content. Like just jumping on a video together and tagging each other, going live together can be really, really helpful. I think community also.
Just before you, sorry, Jemimah, just before we move on to community, I want to ask you another question about collaborations, because it seems like such a critical, what do you call it, weapon in your arsenal, for building an audience. Do you have any tips on how to get people to say yes, like collaborators to say yes? Because sometimes, I guess it depends a bit on who you're talking to, but there's if you're approaching someone that maybe they're not well known yet, or they've got a relatively small audience, it might be quite easy to do a collaboration with them. But what about if there's someone that you've got your sights on that's a little bit maybe out of range, or a little bit higher than you might normally aim for? Have you been able to, because you've mentioned you've shared stages with some pretty significant speakers and things like that. What are your, or do you have any things that you do that that help you make an impression on some people that you can do collaborations with? Or do you have a strategy in place that does that, or is it just more of an organic thing that happens, but as you go?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things at play here. So the first thing is, if you're a speaker, or you're wanting to do events, or you're coming up as an entrepreneur, I cannot stress enough that please try to keep your side of the street clean. Be very mindful about what people are saying about you. Don't be difficult to work with. Don't be a terrible human. Be kind to anyone you meet. The key thing, and this is probably an AFP lesson, the person that held the most power in our office at any given time was the executive assistant to the boss. And because they can make your life really easy or very hard. And so I learned very quickly that one chocolate frog a week, buying like one of the large chocolate Freddos at $1, took hours of my life off me, like where she would just do all this admin paperwork. If she don't like you, she can make your life really difficult. So I think there is a part of me that just, if I'm going to tell anyone to do something, the reason I have gotten a lot of speaking engagements, the reason I've been quite successful in some of the things that I've done and been asked to do things, is because I'm not a bad person. And I think it is so overlooked when you become successful or are working to become successful, that you just get a level of being a bit of a dick about you. I think I see it occasionally with other people that I've come up with, but for the most part, there is a level of humility you need to bring to this, but it's also being kind to anyone that you meet. You never know who's going to open that next door for you. I know that Business Blueprint, how grateful everyone was, how easy I was to work with. And I know that because I've had multiple other people reach out and say, hey, we heard you were a great speaker. We heard you're amazing. Can we collaborate with you? Can we talk? Do you want to come and speak at this event? Following just Dale Beaumont being like, she was great to work with. Like, it's really it can be actually that simple. The second thing here, be a good person and don't be difficult to work with. And there are a lot of speakers who I can say very confidently would not meet those minimum criteria. The second thing I would say here is that if you were trying to punch above your weight a little bit here, and you're wanting to, get Gary Vaynerchuk's number, if you're trying to bring Mike McCowitz out, if you're trying to chat to Tim Ferriss or wanting to get them on a podcast, if you're wanting to get Mel Robbins to come out to Australia, there's a key thing you can do that I think is extremely underrated and is overlooked quite frequently, and it's just simply ask. Come in with an extremely clear idea of what you're asking. Make it as simple as possible. The format is going to be, it's a live call. We'll edit the video. This is what's going to happen. Make it easy for me to say yes. If you are asking me as a collaborator to, I want to be the guest facilitator, I cannot organize your retreat for you. I do not want to come in. I run my own business retreat every year. I don't want to collaborate on yours if you just want help. I want to come in as your guest to be a draw card for sure, but most people will say no because it sounds like work. I don't need more work. I need people to make my life a bit easier. Be really clear about the ask too. Like, hey, would you like to collaborate is a problem? Because I don't know what you're asking. It's going to be no because it's too vague. Hey, do you feel like filming a 90-second quick video with me now to talk about visibility mistakes people make at this right now in 10 minutes out the front? Let's do it. That sounds great. Hey, let's do an hour of a podcast. Okay, that sounds great. Send me a calendar. But also, don't be like, when are you free? Ask me if I've got a calendar, or do you want to book into our calendar? Make it as simple as possible for there to be a yes. And also make sure that I'm aligned. I've had people that I've been on calls with before, and it's become extremely clear that we have nothing in common. And you're just trying to get our values were not aligned. Our tone was different. That this is, that it was a party podcast. So they're like, we drink and sometimes we get high and we record. And I'm like, I can't help you. Not my brand. But two, I don't really drink and I never use drugs. So I can't really help you. Not my vibe. Thanks. Make sure it's in alignment.
Right. Okay. So if I distill it down, be a good person. Don't be a dick.
Yep.
Be kind.
Exactly.
But also make it easy. Ask them, but then make it easy for them to say yes, and make sure they've got that alignment. Love it. I love especially the simple just asking thing. It's like so often we don't ask because we're scared or we don't think we're good enough or whatever. So I love that. Okay.
I think a lot of speakers are scared as well. I think speakers get a little bit, when you're speaking at an event, you often think, a lot of people don't approach you, and this is just a real secret from speakers. When you're on stage, audiences go, well, they won't want to speak to me. Then what happens is the speaker overcorrects because they're just like, I want someone to talk to me. I'm here for the entire day. So the speaker, often no one comes up to talk to them at all, and no one comes up to approach them. They're there to be spoken to. They're there to open doors, to talk to you about their program. They are there to actually have a conversation. It's surprising how many people say, excuse me, do you mind if I talk to you? Of course we don't mind. We're there. We're professional speakers. We want to be chatted to. Please come have a chat with us. We're not scary people, we promise. But I think people can do a bit of the pedestal thing and think they don't want to chat to me. We do. We want you to chat to us. We really want you to come and say hello to us.
All right, so actually go to events and speak to the speakers because they love being spoken to.
Well, they love that. Well, for them, look, I won't speak to everyone, but in that situation, again, the good humans will just be like, hey, what's up? Or, someone said to me, someone said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go get some dinner. And they said, I don't want to interrupt. And I said, I had to say, look, I'm actually going to go some dinner. If you want to come with me, you're welcome to. Oh, I just thought that maybe you'd want to be by yourself or you'd want to do something. No, all good. I'm happy for you to come with me. All good. Yeah. Happy to do that. But no one's a celebrity.
Oftentimes when you go and speak, you might be in a sort of a new area where you don't have any friends, right? And so you go out for dinner, it might just be you. So you're sort of inviting people to come along is a good idea. Awesome. All right. So, Jemimah, we've got to start wrapping things up a little bit. There's the community thing that we can quickly touch on, and then we'll wrap things up. But the community is also a very important thing. So it's one thing to build an audience, but if there's no real community, like people don't stick, right? Because I think on your website, you say, let's make you seen, heard, and remembered. And I think that's the remembered part. It's like being part of that community. What's your sort of quick fire tips on community building?
Be kind, don't be a dick. They're kind of the first ones. 2 is that just remember that it is a small business community, and how you treat everyone will absolutely get around as part of it. The community, you are trying to get people offline as soon as possible. So for example, if you go to these kind of events, you want to get people on your emailing list. You want to get them into their own nurture sequence. You want to be kind to anyone that raises their hands to work with you. You want to bring in, you take care of your clients. Take care of clients even when they're leaving. I think is the other thing. For, remember they're part of your community and they'll expand out. If you're difficult at any point to them, that reputation will precede you at some point. When it comes to building your community for people like speakers, for coaches, for people who are wanting to grow their profile, the best thing that you can do is just be very consistent. Again, the reason I'm known as being a speaker, the reason I end up on Dale's stage, the reason I'm talking to other speakers at Dale's programs who are getting me other jobs is because I was consistent from the ground up of, I'm speaking at this event, I did this, here's some photos, here's the thing, I did the social media innings on this, I did video content about it. I was very clear about what that is. The other thing is that you have to find people who are going to advocate for you in rooms that you are not in. And that's harder than it sounds, because you want people who, you have to be known for something and be clear about what you're known for. If you just tell me you're a life coach, I know nothing about what you do. I need you to be really clear about it. I need you to absolutely sell that to me as much as you can, so I can build a depth and a connection with you and make sure that, wherever I go, I can use your name because I know of the thing that you're doing. Get clear about it, be verbal about it, make it easy to refer to you.
Love it. I think the community building thing is an ongoing thing. So thank you for those tips. Jemimah, it's been really awesome. I have one more question for you, and that is, what do you think is the biggest enemy for becoming visible as a thought leader in your industry, and how would you overcome that?
I think it's yourself. I think every single part of that, and I think we've talked a little bit about it today, I think the biggest risk anyone's going to have is yourself. And the risk is going to be around just being so inconsistent and not doing what you need to do. The biggest driver for this is likely to be imposter syndrome. And let me be really clear about that. That little voice that's telling you to play it safe, don't post that, who do you think you are? It's really nice, and she's trying to keep you safe. And she is a dick. She's trying to keep you safe, and the problem is it's actually not going to be any it's not going to be beneficial to you in any way, shape, or form. You have to, if you believe in what you do, you have to commit to it. The second thing is, this idea of playing it safe is dangerous, but also, like, the third thing here is being consistent. You have to be consistent. And I want you to think of this as a personal challenge to yourself. You have to, in some ways, parent yourself in this scenario. I can tell you that if you have a toddler or you've ever had a toddler, you will know that getting them to brush their teeth is the hardest thing you'll ever do. And you have to sometimes strap them down. And you know why you need to do this. They just don't want to do it. And you are going to have to wrangle with yourself in many situations to get this stuff done, because you're never going to feel like it. You're never going to feel like, I really need to do a social media post where I talk about being an expert. No one's going to want to do that. Consistency is absolutely the key. And that's where, you're going to take, if you take the projection of like, if you take it out of your control, if I have a spreadsheet, if I have to do it, I'm not going to have imposter syndrome because this is just a process we're following. I'm not going to play it safe because I already know what I'm going to post, and I'm going to be consistent about it. Your biggest enemy is going to be yourself. And so get out of your own way, get over your own imposter syndrome and your own voice inside your head. Get the processes down. Just get out of your own way.
Beautifully said, Jemimah. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you for sharing all your wisdom and tips and strategies. Really, really awesome. Where's the best place that people can go to find out more about you and if they want to work with you?
Yeah, crazily jemimahashleigh.com. That's probably the best place. But I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook, all of the places. Oh, it's my website. Look at that girl. She's cute. It's some of the places we've been featured. There's some real places. We do some really fun stuff. We'd love to have a chat with people about it.
Awesome. So go on to jemimahashleigh.com. Let me just spell that. It's Jemimah. Then Ashleigh is ASHLEIGH.com. So if you go check that out, make sure you connect with Jemimah, and look forward to seeing what you come up with next, Jemimah. Thanks so much, and I look forward to our next chat. Talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to grow your influence with daily short form videos, Vubli makes it effortless. Post everywhere, be seen everywhere. Try it free at vubli.ai. I'll see you in the next episode.